Welcome to the See What Sticks Variety Podcast featuring your hosts, Jake Andrews, Joe D'Souza, and Jackson Playfair.
What's going on, everybody? This is episode 8 of the See What Sticks Variety Podcast. I am your host, Jameson Andrews, and my co-hosts today, as always, Joe D'Souza and Jackson Playfair. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing awesome, man. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a long week, but fun-filled and lots of sun, so I'm happy as a clam. We got the house to ourselves now. Our roommate moved out recently. It was somewhat of a sad time, but also embracing the newfound freedom, so we're definitely enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. You're having your own space back. Must be kind of refreshing.
Yeah, well, we never really I lived with roommates and she lived by herself, and then we moved in with a roommate, so we've never actually gotten to live alone. So after 2 years, it's definitely like the time. We're like engaged now, so
Nice. So is that the room that you turned into your podcast / extracurricular activities?
Yeah, he was in the basement. He was upstairs at first, but then we gave him the basement. And now all my streaming and entertainment unit TVs all down here, and it looks fantastic. I'll send you guys a picture sometime later. Check it out.
That's ideal. That is ideal.
Yeah,
that's what
it.
I need that in my next
It's
place.
streaming and podcasting nirvana.
Yeah, need that.
So today we're gonna dabble a little bit in the world of sports. I know Jackson and I, come from sports playing backgrounds and tend to watch a lot of Sports Center, etc. So we got a lot of commentary, and I know Joe's been doing his best to bone up on some sports knowledge, and he's seen some stuff in his time too. So it's not going to be a hell of a lot of who's the greatest of all time based on advanced stats from this time period. No, it's going to be a lot of opinion based. Just get some discussions going. So let's push it over to Jackson to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
push in any direction.
All right. Well, obviously, the hope right now from all sports fans in the next coming weeks from the NHL and other sports leagues is that we're going to get a return to play, and people are going to start coming back to play. At one point, it probably felt like we were not going to have that. Like, I think when this first started happening, it was crazy. I remember, I don't know about you guys, but the day that they canceled both the seasons, the NBA and the NHL, I was watching Sportsnet, and in between the first and second intermission, they like go to the panel, and it was like a breaking news. Like it was like I was watching Fox News, and they were just like, breaking news: the NBA has shut down the season due to the players getting COVID. And then the next commercial came through, and it's like the NHL's announced they will shut down tomorrow. And like the game was, or they were going to make an announcement on it. And then the next day they shut down, but the game was still going on. And it felt very apocalyptic. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, oh my God, the world is ending. Sports are over.
Well, I saw that they were, they introduced like I think it's confirmed hub cities. Both of them are in Canada. I think it's Toronto and Vancouver, I want to say.
Yeah, it's Toronto and Edmonton. So just a quick run through with what's going on. So right now, July 13th, it's supposed to be the beginning of phase 3. That's when the NHL wants all their players to report back to their NHL cities, the individual cities, and start training camp. Then 13 days later, July 26th or thereabouts, around there, is when the teams would actually head to Toronto and Edmonton. And then phase 4, which would be playing, would be August 1st, which is the best of 5 play-in series. So there's a good chance there's exhibition games before that. But again, this is all very speculative that things are going to go smoothly throughout this process. And already they're running into some bumps that I'm sure they kind of expected, which is individual players are turning up COVID positive when they're returning back to camps. For the most part, what I've heard is that like the players that do test positive are no symptoms. So I guess they're following a specific protocol that Edmonton, Alberta, and Toronto, Ontario were willing to participate in, which I think has something to do with if you test positive, you go back into isolation for 7 or 14 days. And during that time, you're tested constantly. Even the people that test negative still get at least, I think, 3 tests throughout 7 days of returning back to their home cities. And then once they return or once they all go to the hub city, they'll be testing throughout. So I think the idea from the NHL is like, let's just keep testing. And if something comes up, we can individually isolate that specific player, which I think from like my standing makes sense, right? Like, if not everyone has it, let's try and get this thing going. And then when guys come up that do have it, we'll deal with it on an individual basis.
Yeah. So like that what's going on with the crowds? Like, are they allowing, based on what you had said, are they allowing people to come watch, or is it still going to be basically nobody in the seats?
So it's still going to be nobody there for the most part. So I think the idea is so August 1st play, August 10th. They would like to let's see, we could get the draft. So they want to do the draft lottery, and then obviously playing all the way through there. Early October is when they hope to have the Stanley Cup presented. And then November 1st would be when free agent opens up. And then hopefully, I guess, they would be back to playing hockey for next season in maybe the start of December would be the idea. So to back it up, they don't want anyone to go there whenever all the teams are going to go, and then some teams are going to get knocked out right away, and then they're going to keep obviously narrowing it down until they have a winner. So the idea that I've heard potentially is as teams are eliminated, family members and friends and stuff like that can say a team gets eliminated, and with that 100 people from each team, because you got to think it's the players, it's the owners, or it's the players, it's the coaches, it's the trainers, it's the equipment people, it's the marketing people. There's a big group of people that are going to come with every team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that as each team gets knocked out, that many people could like fill back into the hub that would then have to go through the testing process. Because the idea is that if a team makes it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, like that team's family should be able to be there for the Stanley Cup Finals.
That
right?
makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's like the like the furthest that they want to push it. I don't think that there'll be fans at any of the games, minus like that sort of situation, right?
That's crazy that they're getting 3 tests in 7 days. Have you guys seen what goes into a test? Like, that would suck so bad.
Dude, so I guess they actually have a couple different tests now, because I have a family member who actually got the test done, and they said that they have like a new thing that they touch like 3 points. So it's just like the very start of your nose, like not all the way in your nose, and then your tonsils and the back of your tongue or something like that is where they are getting samples from now. So I guess it's not as bad as, but dude, the one they had before where they literally like poked your brain like a Q-tip.
Q-tips.
Dude, we'll have to put a link up to a video of someone getting tested, because like the Q-tip is far too big to be going inside your nostril. Far too
They're
big.
like digging in your stomach with how long that thing is. It's crazy.
Right. So just wrapping back, I think that the conversation part of this is like, I think that it's so tough, because like every day it feels like there's news coming out that like we're not necessarily in a better place. So I think the reality is all of that, this whole thing created by the NHL and trying to move forward with it, is an effort to push forward with something. But like, I don't know, man, I still think at any day it could all blow up and be back to square one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, there's some news that even there might be a secondary pandemic that might happen, some swine flu that's a subdominant species, or some strain of H1N1. You know, there's a lot of doom and gloom in the you know in all the news that's going on, but at the same time, like I completely understand why. I think not just everything that's going on with sports, but also pretty much every other industry as well, being like, we need to kind of get something going. We need to do stuff, because people are like, people are getting cabin fever, but at the same time, like we need to have players play. We need to keep the interest alive, even if there's like an economic hit from not having any fans. Because I imagine, wow, that's a big hit for like everybody that's involved. But I mean, if they can still, I imagine that there's been enough money made that they can still get people playing and keep things alive. I think that's important.
Well, they were saying like they might not get back to like regular operations till like 2022, 2023 or something, like business as usual. It's
Which
going to
is
be a big
crazy. You got to think that if that's the reality, then it's crippling to some sports. You know what I mean? Like hockey, hockey's it seems like athletes make so much money, which they do. But here's the thing with what's going on with the NHL and why they want to come back, because getting fans back in is obviously a number one priority, because like sports is entertainment, and if you don't have a fan base, you don't have an audience, you're not selling your entertainment to anybody. You can't market it, you can't do anything with it. But if you can come back, and right now the big thing is if we can get the TV deals and they're able to play hockey all day long, like that's where we're going to be able to recoup some of our costs. But looking forward, the big thing is the players don't know if they want to come back, right? Like I think baseball is going through a huge thing when the players are like, no, it's not safe for us to come back and potentially catch something and give it to our families, and we're just not going to do it. And then the NHL has now running into a similar situation where the players are like, hey, we don't know if we want to go back and play. But the thing about the NHL that separates it in some ways is the NHL, every player in their contract, they pay what's called escrow. So the NHL is a revenue sharing group. So the idea is that if you own an NHL team, you shouldn't be losing a certain amount of money every year is the concept. Everyone should be making money if there's money to be made. So the way that the NHL protects against that is that all the owners have the players in their contracts. They pay a certain percentage of their contract into escrow, and it sits in an account. And what that account does is at the end of the year, if the NHL has made more money than they're what they expected to make, then they're supposed to take escrow and give it back to the players, and they get a bonus because the NHL made more money than they thought they were going to make. If the NHL loses money, then they're able to go into escrow and take the salary of what all the players put in and distribute that amongst the owners so that their revenue isn't below their expected mark. And that's where the way it's been for years. But the thing about escrow is sometimes it's like 15%. So players are paying, 40% to taxes. Then they got to pay their agents. They got to pay their managers. They got to pay other people out. And then hey, trust me, I'm not saying these guys are having a hard time. The guy's making $10 million a year. Like, boo hoo. I get it. But you got to understand that $10 million on paper, that player actually probably only ends up bringing closer to 4.5, which is still a ton of money. But if escrow then all of a sudden jumps up to 30% or 40% because the owners lost so much money this year, then a player making $10 million is only going to make $1 million, $2 million, because escrow is so high. And at what point is that kind of like, okay, this is crazy, right?
Well, it depends where you play too, right?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead there, Jake.
The taxes, it kind of depends where you play, because there's some states that like the taxes are way lower or like basically non-existent versus other states.
That's super dependent, right? And like the two biggest examples, just for like Austin Matthews plays in Toronto, Connor McDavid plays in Edmonton, right? Two Canadian cities. Connor McDavid's salary last year was $12.5 million. Austin Matthews was 11.34. They're playing in Canada. They pay huge tax on that money. So the majority of their salaries is actually a bonus. So they get their bonus paid in one day, because somehow the way it's structured, they get taxed a lot less on the bonus money versus their salary money. So like this July 1st, Austin Matthews made like $15 million in bonus on one day.
Wow.
Because that's the way his salary is structured. And then two guys that play in Dallas, Texas, two great players like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, they each signed for I think they're making around 9 million, 9.5. But their 9.5 million is a lot closer to 9.5 million after taxes than those Canadian guys, right? So those are huge things that get factored in when these guys are deciding where they want to go and how much they want to sign for it, right? When you think of the different tax brackets in different areas, it's crazy.
The way it sounds, it seems like a certain tightrope dance that you'd have to budget, especially around a situation that you have going on in the world today, like with Corona, because of how, like, I mean, for me, when I think about what it would be like to have that sort of income per year, regardless of what I was doing, I would feel a sort of super ego boost in the sense that, like, I would be like, okay, I'm going to buy that super sweet car, or I'm going to lease that out, and kind of, and I might I could see how it'd be easy to tie yourself up with a lot of, leases and new houses and, extravagance that, would be, I feel, completely natural to have that sort of experience. But when then you have, major cuts and, your salary getting, constantly pegged down, especially now with, like, if it does go, like you're saying, escrow jacks going up to 40%, like that $1 million might not be able to pay for all your expenses.
Exactly. And that's the key idea is, you're right. Like, I think when you look at the exorbitant amount of wealth and all sports, it's like kind of the real world, right? Like, that's still only the 1% of the 1% of those sports. Like, I think hockey's pretty good because the wealth is rather well distributed. Like, for the most part, this is very basic in general, and there's obviously outliers in different situations. But hockey has 4 forward lines, right? So 4 groups of 3. And for the most part, your guys on your 4th line are making league minimum or close to league minimum. Maybe $1 million a year is like the max if you're playing on the 4th line. Then you move up to the 2nd line and say those guys jump up to $1.5 million to $2.5 million a guy for the 3rd line. Your 4th line, they're all making close to maybe $3.5 to $5 million. And then your 1st line, those are the 3 guys on your team who are, if in the structuring of the idea, they're all making probably close to, say, 8 million each,
Yeah, almost
or
double.
right. So, but that's only 3 guys of the 20, and then you extrapolate that into all the other sports. Like, look at the NFL, right? The NFL has 50 guys on a roster. So the quarterback who's making $30 million a year versus the defensive lineman who's making $500,000 a year, $750,000 a year. And they're paying maybe not the exact same taxes, but pretty close. And, like, who's, you know what I mean? That's where people sometimes with professional athletes in those worlds, they get kind of confused because not everyone's making those huge contracts. The guys that are making those huge contracts never have to worry about money for the rest of their lives. If they can play a couple good years, like, they're good, they're set. But everyone else, these things matter, right? Like,
Yeah.
losing that kind of money, it's a really important thing, especially when you're around that lavish lifestyle. You see the guy driving the brand new car, you see the guy in the $5,000 suit and the whatever.
Yeah, you're gonna want to keep up with the Joneses for sure. You're gonna want to, like, you don't want to, for lack of a better term, but you don't want to feel like a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, you want to keep up with it.
And
there's a story I was telling Michelle actually about, since we're talking contracts and money. There's a baseball player. His name's Bobby Bonilla, and he hasn't played since 2001. But check this out. So he signed a contract, I think it was in 1997, I want to say. He played for the Mets, and then I think he was traded to the Pirates. And in 1999, the New York Mets wanted to get rid of him, but still owed him almost $6 million on his contract. Instead of paying him outright because they wanted the money for other things at that time, his agent negotiated with the team to defer payments until 12 years later in 2011 with an 8% annual interest rate. And when you calculate that, it's a nice $29.8 million sum. But they negotiated the contract where he deferred the payments, and now he's getting $1.2 million a year from 2011 until 2035, when he will turn 72 years old.
Oh my God.
What a solid agent.
Yeah, dude.
And
like,
the
they're
Pittsburgh
paying.
Pirates who he was traded to, his agent negotiated a similar contract where I think he's paid another 500 or 750,000 a year from them until 42.
Man, like they're paying that guy that much money to not be there, to literally not be around. They're
They
like,
call it Bobby Vanilla Day every year
yeah.
on July whatever, July 10th. They're like, oh, July 1st. They stopped to chuckle at the Bobby Vanilla thing because they're like, oh, he's getting paid 1.2 million for nothing again.
What a retirement
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
guy's
a
a stud.
very, very good decision. But yeah, it's crazy, and it's like that, like you're saying, keeping up with the Joneses, like you're in the world of uh like the highest level of ego that there possibly is. Like there, I'm not saying that athletes aren't, there's not good guy athletes or good people or whatever, but in order to perform at your best and something that everybody else is trying to do at their very best at the same time, like a lot of it comes down to the mindset of like knowing how good you are and going out there and doing it and being worth the money. You know what I mean? Like there's like,
Yeah.
for example, there's the highest paid baseball player, Manny Machado, plays for the Dodgers. He signed a 10-year, $300 million salary. So he's making $30 million a year. Like you're stepping out to play baseball, and if you have 5 bag games, 10 bag games, you play 162. So say you have 30 bag games, like you got to go to sleep knowing that an organization is paying you so much money, and sometimes you're just not going to do it well. Like sometimes it's just not going to work out. You're going to be playing bad, but the mental battle that you have to go through to at least convince yourself and then perform at such a level on such a consistent basis to be worth that amount of money and take that amount of criticism and whatever, it truly is a very weird human um thing that I don't think you can really ever explain it to people unless you're to go through it, right?
Yeah, I
There's
think
a
we should go through it. Let's go through it. Because I
I'm
just
just
I just had a quick thing that I wanted to say about the whole like ego thing, and that's something very very interesting. I find that fascinating actually. That you have to play that tightrope, but at the same time, like I feel like ego gets such a bad rap. Like to further what you were saying, Jax, is like your sense of self, because that's I think a lot of people forget that ego really just means your sense of yourself. And at that level of status and income and presence in society, like your sense of self is going to be huge. But that doesn't mean that that has to be a bad thing. It just means that you have a lot when you think about yourself. That's essentially what it means, right? So, like, at the same time, people like the word ego gets thrown around as like a bad word, like, oh, look at that guy's ego. And that's only just because it's obvious that um, that somebody's so into themselves and it's a negative thing, that's what the word ego gets associated with. But really that's just something that people notice, because your ego can be very good. Like you can have a great sense of self and you could be a nice person. So I think that like that mental battle of like that pressure, and also your sense of self, and keeping that all in check and keeping yourself grounded, I think that's a game. Like that's got to be something that like it's hard to imagine exactly what that would feel like, but it's fun to think about. And also that I think that when you get to that level of status, or if you're doing something at that, I think your body just kind of knows what to do. Like I'm making assumptions here, but I'm assuming that like when you're playing, if like for instance me, I was going to go and play as a pitcher for Toronto Blue Jays. If I were to do that right now, I would sweat, I would shake, I wouldn't know what to do, I'd be so scared. But I imagine that you've worked your way up to that level that you kind of just get used to it. So that's kind of my take on that.
Well, yeah, it's your fuel for your, like, to me, your ego is something that you're right, it shouldn't be viewed as a negative, but it has negative connotations if you're unaware of it. Like the less you're aware of your ego, the more that it can act alone by itself and do things. But I think at that level, your ego is like it turns into like a swagger almost. Like when you walk out there and you see guys who are the best of the best, exactly. Like they, for me and you to go out there and throw a pitch in front of 50,000 people is terrifying. But for that guy who's done it his whole life, has chased this moment his whole life, that's gasoline on that ego that's already inflated, because he knows, if I don't do this to the very best of my degree, someone's literally standing right there in the bullpen waiting to come get me, waiting to come do what I'm going to do. So I need this. Like,
Yeah.
I want this.
There's something so
And that,
functional there. Like, it's so functional. Like
for sure,
purpose, right?
that's why people are fascinated by people who can do it at the highest level. Like the Jordan documentaries that came out, The Last Dance, like everyone who watched that, you see that he operated in this sense of like, I know what I can be, and you guys might look at that and see it as one thing, but like if I don't hold myself to that standard, no one else will hold me to that standard, because no one thinks it exists. Like
Right.
no one thinks you can do that. So I need to hold myself there and constantly produce at that level in order for people to actually think it's doable, because right now it's a concept, but to perform at that high of a level, I mean, I think that's why we see the salaries getting bigger and bigger and bigger, is because these guys are saying, give me it, like give me that pressure, let me go out and do what I'm supposed to do. And I think ultimately there's nothing cooler in sports than, like when Manny Machado steps up to the plate and hits a home run. It's like, dude, that's what you're supposed to do. That's sick to watch you do that in a clutch moment. Or
Yeah.
like Patrick Kane comes in a shootout and like it's him and the goalie. He scores, they win. He saves it, they lose. And like that moment is like, that's why they're there. That's why we all watch, and that's why we're all praying that it comes back in 2 weeks. Please.
Yeah. No doubt.
But yeah, I think that sports and ego are very similar. But I think you're right. I think for people just in general life, like that's a lesson to take. If you, like you said, the ego is identification of the self. If you don't think of yourself as superior or like you can get whatever you want to get, then you're going to look at yourself and think that you can't get whatever you want to get. You don't need to be arrogant and aggressive, but you need to understand that, like, hey, this person in me, if I can't do it, someone else is just going to go do it. If
Yo,
I don't,
man, I got something
go
so
ahead.
tasty with that. Like the idea of you have to think yourself superior. I think it's important to say like superior to what? So what I think where it might go wrong is that you're superior to others in like in a bad way, in the sense like because that's where I think you could play that tightrope of ended up going down a bad route, being a jerk, being an asshole, and just being really arrogant because you think you're superior to everybody else, and that can be a dangerous thought. I think that what might work, and I'm just spitballing here, but I'm thinking that like superior to yourself as you are now, so that you can always see
Yeah,
yourself better. That keeps you humble. I think that's what I'm thinking.
for sure. But that is ego, right? The
Yeah.
ego is identification of the self. So that's what you're trying to be superior then. Like, for how ridiculous it's going to sound, your current ego is trying to be superior to your past ego. Like you're
Yes.
always, you know what I mean? And I think that you can be like, don't judge that. Don't look at it and be mad and be like, oh, I was an asshole. I was at this. I was at that. Like, look at it and be like, I didn't know. I was at a point in my life where I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the understanding. I didn't get it. Like, I didn't know what my ego was when I was 16. Like, I didn't know. I didn't even know what that word meant, dude, let alone to actually understand it, look inside myself, see what that was, identify it, and then be able to live your life understanding when you're acting in it ignorantly and when you're acting in it confidently.
Yeah,
And like
dude.
that takes time.
That's great. Like, because I love that idea, because I can relate to that, and I'm sure it's the same for you too, Jake. And like, but you know yourself though, like you know who you are more or less baseline at 16. Like, I think that by that time, especially because you're like hormones are starting to go and whatever, you're probably starting to get a little bit more of that sense of self getting strengthened, being like, oh yeah, fuck, I'm the shit or whatever. But I think that for me, it's always like the self kind of permeates. And it's only later as you grow that your sense of yourself increases and gets stronger or superior to what it used to be.
For sure.
Grand Salame.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think like ultimately, um, there's two different kind of paths with it, right? There's like, um, there's the people who go out on the stage and perform, and they have to know that they're gonna be good, or then there's the other side of it that I think is very much as equal, and everyone goes through. Um, on different levels, which is like a lot of people, man, they kind of feel like they're fooling everybody. Like they're out there being like, dude, I'm not that good at this. I'm not that. There's that self-doubt, right? And I think even people at the top of whatever it is, musicians, actors, artists, athletes, I think that sometimes those people you too have moments where they're like, shit, like maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Maybe there's that doubt that everyone has, right? So I think the idea of like superior confident ego and superior self-doubt ego are both ideas that that it doesn't exist, you know.
That's kind of way. It's fun to think about exploring what it's like to reach those, you know, higher and higher statuses. I mean, like for instance, getting a job, you know, somewhere that you might not have ever thought you might have been, just even a couple of years in the past. Like you never know where things are going to take you.
So I think one of the points I wanted to make about like the salary thing and the ego is like a lot of the salaries and inflated salaries, because I know there's a lot of people whose opinion is that, oh, these athletes are getting paid too much, let's pay firefighters and doctors more. And it's like, yeah, it's a very valid point that you have, but it's also based on like TV ratings, and TV is huge and they make tons of money because everybody has a TV, everybody watches TV. They make more money and they trickle that down to the leagues, who trickle it down to the teams, who trickle it down to the players. So there's a good case. I don't know about Manny Machado making fucking $30 million a year over what, 10 years. That's a bit crazy, but who's to say what's fair and what's not? And I think like, if somebody's gonna make $30 million a year, I like it to be the guys like, there's certain guys that were very hyped coming out of high school, or they were drafted really high and had these expectations and they never quite fulfilled them. And then there's the inverse of that. The guy was drafted in like the 10th round. Everybody thought he was going to suck. He turns out to be amazing. And then he consistently puts up numbers and finds success year after year. Those are the guys that I like to watch and the guys that I like to see get paid.
Yeah, you gotta love it, right?
When they have like the ego, and they rightfully should. Like a guy like Tom Brady, he was drafted like 250th or something. Like, of course he got a chip on your shoulder, and it wasn't a chip for like 1 to 3 seasons. It's like every year, small, like not very mobile Tom Brady just finds a way to fucking win. And I don't know if that's the system, the coach. I think it's a bit of everything, but
Yeah, I think when it's a guy that kind of comes out of like quote unquote nowhere, it gives like the underdog feeling of like, oh, that could be anybody, you know? Like that's
everybody loves that.
yeah, it's not like it's like just some guy who's like born to do it. Like I always say like LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. Like LeBron James put in a lot of hard work, but like you look at that guy, he's like genetically made to be a basketball player. Like he's gigantic. He can run, he's athletic, he can jump, he can do all these things where like you look at Michael Jordan and he has a lot of those things too, but he also has this like crazy work ethic that makes him like a very polarizing figure.
Well, and guys like LeBron James, like you guys were talking about how much pressure's got to be on like some of these guys to perform game in and game out. The guy was like hyped when he was like 15 and he came into the league, he fulfilled the hype, and he's been doing it ever since. Like that is pressure.
Yeah, dude, think about that. He went from playing against high school kids. Like you look at high schools across the United States and you look at universities that recruit from these high schools, like in every city, like what is there? Maybe one kid that has a chance of making it to the NBA. Like, you go to like, for example, I don't know, like Cleveland, Ohio. Like LeBron James is the one guy in that town, over the next, like for his age group, maybe there's one, or in 4 years, maybe there's 2, 3 guys that are going to make it to the NBA. But like he's for the most part playing against kids that aren't even going to play in university basketball. or maybe if they do play university careers, that's it. But he went straight from that to playing against the
Like Shaq.
NBA, dude,
This
pulling up
7 foot, 300 pound guy to go try and dunk on him, and he did.
exactly. So it's like that is where you look at it and you're like, okay, I can't work to be LeBron James. Like I can't
Yeah.
necessarily work to be Michael Jordan either.
There's no way
But
that I will ever be Michael Jordan.
exactly,
Just because of my physicalness.
exactly. But then you see a guy again. There's no way that I would ever be Tom Brady either. But the idea that he's more relatable, that he's this guy that just got drafted late and worked until he made it. It's like it's definitely the story that people like to see, and it's tough because the guys who go first overall usually have been pegged in that spot for years before that.
Well, and there are these guys with like cannons for arms and perform like crazy at the combine. Like Tom Brady's combine video is hilarious. The guy could barely do a fucking like bench press. And, that's why I think when the scouts are looking at these players, they're looking at some of the wrong things. Like, yeah, sure, it's great that he can run a, whatever 100-meter dash or 40-yard dash, and he can bench this and he can jump that high. But it's also like, how has the guy performed in those crunch moments and in those high pressure situations? And what were the result? Did he play well, but his team still lost because he was on a terrible team? Or did he take like an average team further than they should have been because of his ability to deal with pressure at the right times? And if anybody looked at Tom Brady at Michigan, like the guy showed up in the bowl games. He showed up in the playoffs when it mattered. And sometimes his teams were like 12-12 or whatever, 8-8 going into the playoffs. And he took them pretty far. So like, there's got to be, if you were a scout, like look deeper into stuff like that. And I don't think they do, which is why he went 250 or whatever.
Yeah, there's got to be a perfect storm of a person.
Yeah, and it's human too, right? Like Michigan is a big football school for sure, but when you look at them versus like an Alabama or Ohio State or like these schools that play for the championships every year, you know what I mean? So like I think it's a lot easier for a guy to be a really, really good player, an excellent player on a team that's going to play at that level. Cause like, you're right. Like the spotlight's always different wherever you are. But nothing makes people nothing for athletes is more appealing for scouts, owners, coaches, anything than champions, right? So if you win, that's all that really matters. You know what I mean? If you're able to win on the biggest stage at the most important time, then for sure, like, I mean, there's tons of guys who got drafted where they shouldn't have got drafted because they played on a team that succeeded and did well. There's also tons of guys who played on crap teams who couldn't figure it out, couldn't go anywhere, didn't get anything, but they were still great athletes, right? They're still great players.
So Ryan Leaf was drafted number 1 ahead of Peyton Manning, I think, at number 2. And like the reason Ryan Leaf was drafted ahead of him was because like all those intangibles and like how good he did for his team. But there's guys like that, while they're very good from a like metrics sort of standpoint, if you're on a team like Ohio State and like USC or something, and you're a pretty good, like above average quarterback, but you're not like built for the NFL or you're not like legendary outstanding, it's harder to tell that because you're surrounded by great players that prop you up and you don't have to face the adversity game in and game out or year over year that you would when you're surrounded by like pretty good players and you're like that guy that's got to be the guy every game.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that being the guy on a good team is fun because if you're not the guy for a night, someone else can step in and do it. Being the guy on a bad team can be tormenting because if you're not doing it, no one else is doing it. And I think you look at like hockey, Sidney Crosby is one of the best players of all time. But the second best player on his team is also one of the best players of all time. So Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby are two of the best hockey players ever, and they just happen to play together. But that also makes them how much better, knowing that they don't have to be that. If they're that every night, that's awesome. But if 1 or 2 nights they're not at their full potential, they have someone right behind them just as good to fill the boots, right?
Well, like it's not a great example because we're not going to compare Sidney Crosby to Shane Doan, but guys like Shane Doan who get stuck in Arizona their entire career, I mean, it's harder for you to make a case to like be inducted into the Hall or ever even taste like a deep run into the playoffs if you just languish as the best player on a pretty good team.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think Shane Doan's story or case in Arizona is it shows you the loyalty of an athlete who felt like he got what he deserved. He worked super hard to get there, but he also was felt very blessed and honored to be where he was, and felt that he needed to help that organization because they were the ones who believed in him, right? And that's just shows, again, like you said, like a great player, but also the biggest thing about that guy, I think why people will always remember him, is like such a good leader, such a good person who wanted something bigger than himself, right?
Yeah, he's a lunch pail kind of guy.
Yeah,
Work
100%.
boots.
A lunch
100%.
pail, like he's on the lunch pail.
No, like he brings his lunch pail to work and his work boots and his hard hat, and he just goes to work. He's not fancy. He's like that workman kind of guy that he's not going to ask for a trade to like a front runner like LeBron James did with Miami just to win. Like he wants to win with the team that drafted him because, like Jackson said, they showed faith. And it's like, so Joe, remember we were saying like you don't have the physical gifts to ever be like a LeBron James, but then I look and it's like there's guys like Paul Correa or there's a couple of like really small guys in the league today just tearing it up, like Braden Point or somebody.
Johnny
And
Gaudreau.
I mean, yeah, and they're like some of the better players in the league, and it just comes down to like how hard you beat your craft, and don't listen to the naysayers when they tell you you can't perform just because you're not fucking 7 feet tall and 38 million inch wingspan or whatever.
Yeah, and that's true because I feel like you would have a lot of that, but maybe the determination gets a little bit of a boost for people that, like you were talking about. I can't remember the names you were mentioning, but I feel like maybe their determination is just a little extra something something because they have that to balance that physical statureness out. Like it's totally a gradient, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely gifts, but you can make up for a lot of the lost, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think guys make things change, right? Like the when people, for a little while there, hockey was like big, strong, whatever. Now it's like speed, 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 and that's just the way that once guys show it can be done a different way. People start to realize that like maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe we can do it different ways. But ultimately, I think the thing that all those guys have in common is just an insane mental fortitude to just be who they are, but like you said, practice their craft at such a level that they won't be denied.
Do you remember the days of the 2-line pass? That seems like so long ago. But that's what really like it allowed that grabby kind of like bigger, stalled out game to evolve into what I think hockey should be. And there's some purists that'll say, oh, it was way better in the 80s and 90s. I think it's better than it's ever been because you don't have all this clutching, grabbing, and ticky-tacky shit going on. It's like fast players ripping through the neutral ice and just flashy shit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was talking about this with my dad about how before you'd have goons on each team that are just out there to fuck shit up. Whereas now it's gone towards a more technical like speed, like you were saying, and expertise of the game as opposed to just kicking the shit out of each other.
Yeah, I think like the thing about the goon mentality is like the army has a tank, right? Like the tank has a purpose. It's very big. It's very obvious. You see it coming, but you also don't fuck with it. When you also see it coming, you're like, oh shit, okay, they got that thing over there. And that allows, the snipers to come in. It allows the SEALs to get in there. It allows, and then like a hockey team similar, man. Like the goon mentality, I think you watch that back in the day. Like today, I feel like hockey is like it's almost like a dance. Like it's very fast paced. It's very give and take. It's very momentum. It's like seizing a moment, and it's like a sword fight. Like you just go back and forth, back and forth. All of a sudden, there's an opening. Boom, you strike. Where before it was like war, man. Like they literally were two sides, and now like football is like to me the biggest war. It's just two sides smashing into each other, trying to move a ball down a field.
Yeah.
That's not what hockey to me was meant to be. You know, like it should be open, it should be free, it should flow and be like a sword fight. Like that's a much better analogy for hockey than a war.
Yeah, like
I love these army analogies. That was great.
Yeah.
Because it's totally true. And like, if you look at like other armies or other nations' armies as like the other teams in the league or the other countries sending people to the Olympics, like you're right. As soon as you see that Russia's got a tank themselves, but now all of a sudden theirs is more mobile in the mud and in the trenches, well, then you can't just have a regular beefy tank that stands still and scare the shit out of you like the goons in the NHL. If you're a goon in today's league, you have to still have some like mobility and skill and speed, or else you're not going to play.
Yeah, exactly. And then now we're getting to a point where exactly like you said, like the guys who can, maintain and be that tank mentality, well, sometimes tanks break down. So it's like, do you want to go and get in a face punching match to show each other who's tougher and possibly break your hand? Or do you want to go out and score 3 goals or 2 goals and win the game based on your performance and get what is supposed to be the purpose of the game? And I think that's where guys are going, okay, like, yeah, if fighting needs to happen, it'll happen. But at the same time, the excitement of the game is at a level, the competition of the game is at a level that the momentum that was felt in a fight, it's still there, but I don't think it's nearly as much as before, as when like all of a sudden, gloves are dropped and 2 guys are circling at center ice, and it's this huge, it literally looks like a Mike
blood and
Tyson
no
fight.
teeth. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and I
wearing
think
helmets, man.
yeah, and I think that I don't like. Did you guys watch this year the Edmonton Calgary series? Like,
Yeah.
dude, that is hockey. Like, give me that all the time. But those games were exciting. They were fast. No one got hurt. They were fun to watch, and no one dropped their gloves and squared up at center ice. Like, there was fights, but it was in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the battle, and like that is what hockey is.
I think I agree with you that like the speed of the game is so much better. It's so much better to watch from a like spectator standpoint. And that's the thing I love about hockey is what you said. It's like the back and forth nonstop action compared to like baseball and hockey or baseball and like football and soccer. There's like so much stalling and so much just fucking do something already. But in hockey, it's like nonstop and it's just great to watch. But I can't think of like the typical enforcer. Like you used to have like guys like Bugard and like Bashir who'd sit on the 4th line, and their entire thing was like, if somebody takes on one of our players or cheap shots them, they're going to be there to set them straight. And I think that role still exists, but like I can't even think of who the typical like fighter would be, the goon on any team. Like who's that guy in the league right now?
I think like the belt holder right now, if you will, is Ryan Reeves in Las Vegas.
But he's a pretty good player, right?
Oh, he's a really good player, and that's the thing, man. Like that's where he's gotten to a level where guys will challenge, and like that's the thing. When I will say, for as much as I don't like the like square up center ice, whatever, when Ryan Reeves fights in Las Vegas, it is like electricity in that building. Dude, it's Vegas fight night, and like they drop the mitts and square up at center ice. Dude, and do yourself a favor, go Google if you haven't watched, or YouTube Ryan Reeves fights, and he is a monster, man. Like terrifying to watch fight.
Tom Wilson's the same sort of thing. He's good at squaring up, but the guy's a great player, is he not?
Oh yeah, dude. Tom Wilson plays on they played in the playoffs. He played with like Ovechkin and Kuznetsov. Like he's a phenomenal player. But that's the thing. Even Ryan Reeves, dude. Like Ryan Reeves is like he keeps Tom Wilson in line. I mean, Wilson can play. He's a better player than Ryan Reeves, but Reeves is like he's the sheriff. He's the sheriff in the league for sure. And he just
Well,
got
Tom Wilson likes to take cheap shots too sometimes.
yeah, oh for sure. And that's the thing, he can fly around. He's a big body, and I mean, you got to know like I said, it's not life or death, but it's life or pain for the next little while. So when you're on the ice and a guy like Tom Wilson steps over the boards or Ryan Reeves,
Keep your fucking head up.
yeah, the game changes, man. Like you watch, there's less time. Guys pass the puck a little bit quicker. Guys might pull up a little bit sooner. Guys might not drive quite as hard, and that's what has having those. Back in the day, they couldn't play at that same level, but they also had bigger tanks, and the tanks would they would do whatever they want, and they would react however they wanted. So it was a little bit scarier. You kind of double thought every decision. Where in today's day and age, that's not as around as much, but it's still there. And there definitely is something to be said for having someone like that on your team.
Yeah, and like I'm an old school guy. I grew up starting to watch it in like the 90s when it was the way it used to be, and I watched it evolve into what it is now, which I strongly prefer. But like I like watching the fights too, and they're warranted. I like the big hits, but like we used to have things like Rock'em Sock'em whatever from Don Cherry, and you'd see these videos of guys just getting fucking laid out, and it's like CTE Concussion City. And I think back to like Scott Stevens laying out Paul Correa, and he's just like dead on the ice. Like it was entertaining to watch as in some sick way, but I don't like seeing that anymore.
It's true, man, and it's changed, dude. It's changed with I don't like even football, man. When I watch like a guy get crushed in football and he's like knocked out in the middle of the field, like I don't get joy from that. Where like back in the day, dude, people did. Like people loved watching people get crushed or knocked out or big fight or all that stuff. Where like, yeah, I like to see a big hip. Like I like to see the guy jump up right away after and like skate it off and be fine. Like I don't want to see him hurt. Like that actually, I understand what that is, but I think it all kind of goes back to the way that culture and entertainment is changing. Like I'm from a small town up in northern BC, and there's like 2,500 people that live in this town. And I remember we went back there one winter and we went and watched a minor hockey game. And my dad coaches hockey, so like they called him in the room and he was kind of giving the team like the hometown. They're called the Fort St. James Stars, and he's like giving them a pregame speech, and it's we were from the city, so I was kind of the city boy. They were like the farm boys, and I remember we're standing in the dressing room, dude, and the coach wheels in a VHS machine, and this is like 2004, 2005. Wheels in a VHS machine, walks over, puts on Don Cherry, Rock'em Sock'em, like fights, and they're like, before they go out to play a minor hockey game, they're watching like massive hits and brawls and guys fighting. They're like, yeah, like this is what we're gonna do. And like I never wanted that, dude. I was like, no, let me like skate around and like try and snipe and dangle and like have fun. And these kids were like, no, like let's go fight and kill and murder.
So there's a documentary. I can't remember if it's on Netflix or what. No, I think it was just on YouTube. I stumbled upon it, and it's called like Fighter or something like that. But it has to do with like hockey, the culture of hockey fighting, and like guys that came through the league or never made it to the league, and then they washed out into the minor leagues of God knows where. And they focused on like a group of 6 guys that all played in this like Southern United States hockey league. It was like Alabama and all those places. And the fans would not go to see like a hockey game. They would go to see people bludgeon each other on the fucking ice. And like they would only cheer for the fighters and only cheer when the fights happen. And they'd be screaming from the stands, like foaming at the mouth about these guys. And they were talking about like the psychological toll it took on them, just knowing every night they were going to have to lace it up and go. And if they somehow broke their hand or got injured, like their career was basically over because they couldn't fight anymore. Like it's sad to see like some mentalities are still like in the dark ages.
I feel like you could have some people though that just love it because they keep winning fights. Like if you're the dude that's always getting his ass kicked, that would suck.
Well, even the guys that were like...
we don't do it for very long.
there's guys that were like the best in the league at the fighting, but you can only take so many blows in the head and sustain that for so long before somebody else comes and knocks you off your pedestal. And they were talking about like it's mentally exhausting to know like you're going up against number 2 guy fucking every time you play him, and if not, you're going up against number 3 guy and 4 guy. Like it must take a psychological beating on you.
No doubt.
Oh man,
Layers of beatings, layers like an onion of just physical,
Man, like what's
mental.
your brain gonna be like after that, right?
Yeah.
dude, and it's your job. Like it's not an optional thing at that point. Like that's the thing for a lot of people that are like the mental aspect of it, and then understanding that like if you want to get paid, you do that, and if you don't do that, then you'll be fired, and someone else will be brought in to do that. And I think the crazy thing when you get to those levels, in certain places, is like it honestly does have like a WWE feel to it. But you're like, we're not doing WWE, we're doing like UFC on skates on ice with no one there to hold us or catch us. And if you fall, your head is bouncing off the ice, and like it's a very, very, very dangerous way that the game is played. And I mean, I understand it. It's an entertainment sport, right? Like there's entertainment value to it. But I also disagree with the way that it's done in some levels. But I don't know. I guess that's just the human. Like if guys want to do it and that's what they want to go after and pursue, then who am I to stand there and say you shouldn't be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and their angle on it was like they're a brotherhood and they're like a fraternity that all understand what each other are out there to do, minus a few guys that are just there to fuck shit up and like be reckless and fucking bite people out there. There was like this one guy that was like 6'8", like 340 pounds, and everybody in the league hated him because he was just a meathead. Like he didn't have a single brain cell in his body, and he would just go out there trying to hurt people in whatever way possible and like slash and take cheap shots and shit. But for the majority of them, there's like an understanding that we're going to get out there, we're going to do our shit for the fans, and we're going to respect each other afterwards, and you know do it in the right way. But a lot of them were saying like, I love hockey and I want to play this as long as I can, and they pay me to play the game that I love, and I never want to not do that. But they're paying me like $3,000 a season to go out there and get my ass handed to me, and it's like hanging on by a thread because you know it's the only way I can play the game that I love is to freaking strap on the mitts. Like I'm not a finesse player that can get away with playing any other way.
Yeah, and that's the reality of like minor pro hockey, right? Like I think there's an illusion that comes with it. Like even anything outside of the AHL or the NHL, you can make good money. You can for sure make a living. But once you get into, especially in North America, once you get outside of the American Hockey League, you are getting very, very close to. You have to be enjoying it. You have to be doing it for the right reasons because you are not making enough money to call it a career in the sense of how everyone else views life and careers and jobs, right? Like an average median income for most people is whatever, 50 grand, right? A year would be considered like maybe middle class, lower middle class. And some of these guys that are playing professional hockey are making $12,000 a year. Like, that's not a career.
Yeah. The career has to have a little bit more substance to it. I wanted to touch on really quickly the competitive nature to it, and the like just going out there and trying to knock each other out and all that sort of stuff. Like it made me think of sportsmanship and how I think it's really fascinating. It's pretty cool actually how at the end of every game, whether it be UFC, any NFL, NBA, NHL, any professional sports game, there's always handshaking at the end of it. There's always that respect of like, leave it on the ice, leave it on the field. And it doesn't like continue. I thought that was really cool. And I thought that I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think it shows like the human understanding of competition, right? Like win, lose, or draw. The idea of the ultimate competition on such a level is like everyone's going as hard as their human body is possible in their mind. It's something to be respected, not disrespected, right?
There's like we were talking about, kind of like pants shitting effect of like knowing that you got to get out there and possibly get like body checked into the nether realm or the fucking, knocked your teeth out just playing the game because shit happens out there. But like these UFC guys that train like for 3 months at a time, knowing who they're going up against, specifically trained for their style, and then they just stand in the middle of the ring in front of like 15,000 people and beat the snot out of each other and somehow like have the wherewithal after getting knocked around for that long to like shake hands and understand that it's competition and it's what they signed up for. And whatever shit I talked about in the press conference before the fight, it's all good and love after and respect. Those guys are the craziest motherfuckers ever, man. I've done some training and I just couldn't imagine doing that professionally, and like the pressure and like the weight cutting and like there's so much crazy shit that goes on in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a primitive, like intimate relationship that's so strange between two people going into a ring and like fighting.
It's like the Colosseum, right?
Yeah, like literally trying to kill each other with your bare hands. Like that is madness, man. And it's I think it takes a different type of professional, and that's why I always laugh at I think it was Floyd Mayweather, or maybe it was Mike Tyson on Joe Rogan's podcast, but he's talking about his upbringing and what turned him into, because like, man, you watch Mike Tyson fights from back when he was like in his prime,
He's butchering people.
it is terrifying, dude. Like his arms are so big, he punches so hard, and he just walks in straight lines. He just walks towards the guy and just bop, 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 just like beats the living life out of these guys. But anyway, then he talks about just like the mental place that he had to go to. And he goes, when I was walking into the ring, before I stepped in and I had my like box, my gloves on, my trainers behind me, people cheering my name, he goes, I was a god. When I walked into that ring, I was a god. Like that's the mental state that he was in going into the ring.
Yeah, you'd have to, right? Yeah, like you'd have to feel that way, and I mean, if you didn't, it'd be scary.
Yeah, and so anyway, just the life that he had to live to get to that point. He talks about how one of his sons, I think, is like, "Oh, I want like Dad, I want to be a boxer," and he just starts laughing. And he's like, he's like, you can't be a boxer. You've lived a way too privileged life. Like your life is,
Oh wow,
you've never, like you're too privileged. Cause like he was Mike Tyson's son, right? So he had the wealth that Mike Tyson had later in life at a young age. And he just said, you can't do what I did because you didn't, like, your life's been too easy. And that's a crazy way to look at it, is like, in order to do something at that level, you have to have struggled at such a deep place that's like for a lot of boxers, it's like that's their only option, right? It is, they have to fight their way to a better life.
Now, Joe's got a fun question to ask us. I'm just gonna give a few points on Mike Tyson. Point A, best like sound clips ever from like I'm gonna eat your children and shit like that. Like he was a god at that. Number two is like one of the cool things I saw about Mike Tyson, and I don't know if you guys watch boxing at all. Like I don't really watch the fights, but like I see clips and stuff on Facebook come by, and there was a fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder for the heavyweight championship recently, and Deontay Wilder came out in like 30 pounds worth of like entrance costume, and then gave that as an excuse for like why he performed so poorly in the fight. And one of the cool things about Mike Tyson that like a lot of his opponents said like terrified them before they even got to the fight was he came out to no entrance music, no costume, no nothing. He just walked with his entourage with no music to the ring, looking like he wanted to murder you.
And he did, dude.
And that worked. That's psychological warfare. And then the other fun thing is you said that his son like wanted to box, and like Mike Tyson said he's too privileged and stuff. Mike Tyson actually went from filthy rich to dirt poor and then built himself back up. So that's another cool thing about him. But his son is, I think it was 16 at the time of this clip. There was a guy that was a world champion. I don't think he was like one of the top organizations champions, but like at some weight class, he had a championship at some point. His name's like Charlie Zelenoff or something. But he would go around, and there's video footage of him doing it. He would go to gyms and find like the weakest, most intimidated person that he could, and he would challenge them to a sparring match. But he wouldn't spar the guys; he would just cheap shot them with like one hard shot. And he's a professional boxer. And then he would follow it up with like 3 or 4 more like combos and just fucking beat these newbies down.
That's brutal.
And it pissed people off so bad that Mike Tyson's son at 16 challenged this guy to a sparring match when he's like 30 something and absolutely brutalized him in the sparring ring. And Buddy was like trying to get out of the ring, and he's like punching him while he's through the ropes. And then he got out of the ring and chased him around the gym. He put him in like a chokehold and like beat the fucking shit out of him.
That's justice. It's justice. Yeah. All right, guys. We got Mike Tyson here. That was a great fight, Mike. How you feeling today? I broke my back. Oh, you broke your back? Yeah, it's what happened? It's spinal.
I broke my spinal.
Yeah, so I got a fun question. So I think we might have talked about it before, Jake. But the idea is that, like, to me, I feel like when I'm watching, maybe it's because I've watched a lot of kung fu movies, but when I'm watching UFC, there's a lot of like sort of like quick movement, like hesitations, like I'm trying to calculate everything that you possibly could come at me with, and so maybe I'll back off, and it's kind of this like little dance that's going on. Now I wonder, and I kind of want to see what you guys take on this, is like, do you think that, like, say somebody like Bruce Lee would do well in UFC? What do you think?
I'll let Jackson take a first crack at it, because I definitely have a strong opinion about that.
Yeah, Bruce Lee didn't have like the effect on me that like I think he had on a huge portion of people, just because I never got into like super kung fu movies and stuff like that. The way that he kind of blew up a genre and an understanding of like what martial arts is. I think he's probably a martial arts expert in a ton of different areas and fields. Without knowing any sort of competition that he might have been in or whatever, I personally don't think that he would have necessarily excelled on that, because I think, to me, UFC is it's such a combination of like all those guys are like, they have all these expertise, like, right? So they can be like a jiu-jitsu expert, they can be a striking expert, a kickboxing expert, a whatever. So like Jake kind of said, for the 3 months that you're in camp preparing, like, you might be preparing for a guy who's a world-class wrestler and jiu-jitsu artist and has like insane leg striking ability, but can't throw the heavy punches. So you have to like tailor what you do with your specialties around what he does in his specialties. So I mean, it's so hard to say, because who like I consider like, yeah, Bruce Lee can't strike. Well, Bruce Lee probably, if he wanted to do UFC, could have figured out how to strike and become a great striker, right? Like, that's the counter argument. But I think that when you look at the professional athletes and you look at what he did, they're very different things. Like, I look at the UFC guys as like, dude, those are gladiators, man, and they're going in there with like their bag of expertise, hoping that they can go up against the other guy and then have the will and the power and the training they've put into it. Where someone like Bruce Lee, he professionalized martial arts in the coolest way visually possible, but he also wasn't fighting against people that were trying to murder him, like in real life. Where I think that's a separation that I like. If he came back and trained for it, he probably could do it. But right now, the stuff that we've seen versus what the UFC is today, I don't think that he would have been like a world-class UFC fighter.
Yeah, Jake?
Well, I think to answer that question like appropriately, I'd have to like clarify the parameters. Are we talking about like Bruce Lee as he was coming into the early UFC, or coming in now, or
Why don't you touch on both, maybe, if you got a different opinion for like?
So I think if you take classic Bruce Lee, from what we know, was like the 70s or something, and like, I'll preface it by saying like, I'm in the same boat as Jackson. Like, I never really was like super fucking martial arts movies, and I never really watched more than Enter the Dragon, so I'm not like an expert on Bruce Lee, but I do know a few things about him, and that he's credited as the first, like, he's like the godfather of MMA, because Jeet Kune Do, the style that he created, It's like a combination of taekwondo, karate, and like judo. So he was the first guy to mix up several different styles into one,
Yeah,
which
there
is
was Wing
essentially
Chun too. That was another one.
Strong was a big one. And he did get into fights. Like he beat up Chuck Norris on the set. He beat up like a couple guys who were legit. Like judo Gene LaBelle is like in his 80s now, but he was huge back then. He's like the godfather of judo. And I think that they got into a fight, and he like, or no, Steven Seagal got into a fight with judo Gene LaBelle, and he made Steven Seagal shit his pants. Another story for another day. But Bruce Lee was known as like he could actually fight. Now, if you take the Bruce Lee in his prime before he died and you stick him in like UFC 1 or 2, I think he would have murdered the guys. Like the only guy who probably would have came close was Hoist Gracie, and it's probably because Bruce didn't have much ground experience. Like he wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy, he wasn't a wrestler, so those types of fighters would have given him some issues. And the thing about the early UFCs is they didn't like approach training camp with the same dedication and like understanding that they do in these days. Now, if you tell me Bruce Lee as is, bring him into today's UFC, he would get absolutely murdered by some of these guys, like in any facet possible. But if you take Bruce Lee into the modern UFC, you give him a 3-month training camp, and like he actually knew he was going to do it from the start and spent like years knowing how. Like you take him UFC 200, he's in his prime still, like say late 20s, early 30s, and he watched UFC evolve over the years and understood how important wrestling was and having a ground game. And you gave him time to develop that, and then he's in a training camp, like fighting. His dedication to training and his hard work ethic, I think he would have been a really good fighter had that been the situation. So I think he would have been competitive. I don't know if he would have been a champion, but the guy was like ridiculously good at like training.
Yeah, and like jujitsu, like I imagine, like I feel like I think he would be like an incredible, because like I mean he's got the one punch, like the 1 inch punch or whatever, and like I know that's like flashy stuff, but he he's got
It
all
was
the cool techniques that are strikes. I don't know how he would be if he started getting grappled.
Dude, isn't that all hocus pocus?
Oh
no,
yeah,
that was legit.
But like, do you think a 1 inch punch would work in a UFC fight?
No, God, no.
If he just had like his fingers on the guy's forehead and he was just 1 inch punching him in the forehead.
In like the perfect situation where the guy's like exhausted and they're standing toe to toe, like I think Bruce would have had like some of those strange techniques that we see, like spinning roundhouse kick that not everyone does. Everyone has the capability to do if they train it, but there's certain guys that like drill it so often in practice they're comfortable throwing it in front of 30,000 people in high pressure situations. Like I think he would have had certain moments where he did stuff that people would have been like, "Wow, holy shit!" Like you see that
for sure.
But one
I
punch, I don't know.
I think he was also smart enough to turn something that is extremely hard and deteriorating on your body into something that you can get longevity out of, right? Like he became a mixed martial arts expert in Hollywood for television and movies versus going in a ring and fighting 30 times, 40 times in your career and literally beating your body to pieces, you know?
yeah. Be like water. Be like water, my friend. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Like I remember watching Ip Man and Ip Man. So those are those 3 movies. I haven't seen the second or third one. I really liked the first one though. And that was kind of maybe I think that's where that sort of question first popped into my head years back. It was because like it just seemed like Wing Chun. I know that as you're saying that Bruce Lee Jake mixed all these different martial arts together into his own kind of style, and the Ip Man story is like he's supposedly his grandmaster, his master that kind of taught him stuff. And I've always been interested in Wing Chun. Like there was something cool about it. I remember seeing a video on YouTube of this guy going around to every major different style of kung fu or karate or whatever the category is, kung fu I'm just going to say. He goes down to all the different, like he goes to a jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, he goes to all these karate, and he just dominates them. Like they can't even hit him because of the technique of it. So I've always been like, one day it would be so cool to learn some Wing Chun.
I think every like martial arts has its practicality And whether or not it's practical for actual fighting is a different story. I think something like when you consider ground game and then you consider the stand-up game, there's like tiers of what is effective across a broad spectrum. Like I think it's universally recognized that wrestling and jiu-jitsu rule the ground regardless of what else is out there. And then like Muay Thai is the most effective striking technique. But that's not to say that like American boxing or Taekwondo, like there's certain guys that are so good at it and they've learned enough of the other disciplines to like negate some of the downsides of their primary discipline. But something like Wing Chun would only be effective in like the smallest, narrowest sense in a practical MMA fight. Like on a street fight, if you're a Wing Chun fighter and some guy's just a drunken fucking brawler, you're gonna probably murder him with some of these techniques. But like Wing Chun is probably not very great for actual competition fighting.
It looks cool. It looks great on a movie.
So does Taekwondo. And there's like guys like Kung Lee who used to fight in Strikeforce, and he would throw spinning axe kicks, and jumping front kicks to guys' heads. And like you can't really prepare for that because there's only like a small subsection of people that are that good and do that shit. How do you find a training partner to simulate that?
Yeah, it's so true.
Dude, this
I just sent you
video.
I know. I just sent you a video of it says Bruce Lee's only real fight ever recorded, and he's definitely fast. He's super fast, but it looks like the guy he's fighting has got basically no idea what he's doing. Like I mean, like he's for sure like he's fast. Like the guy runs at him with basically his arms at his side, and Bruce Lee kicks him in the face really fast, which is really cool. But again, like I feel like this isn't like he's not fighting like Demarius Johnson, like Mighty Mouse in the lightweight division, who's a complete savage, a UFC fighter. Like this, you know what I mean? So
well, I think the keyword there is recorded fight. Like I think if you Googled it, you could probably find like people that had worked on movie sets with him or had trained with them that like can speak to fights that might not have actually been recorded. But there was people that would obviously be like, "Oh, you're Bruce Lee. Everyone's big and high on you. Let's see what you're made of."
For sure, he got in fights and had to whoop some people's asses with his flint spinning kicks and shit, which is sick. And like you said, like he's such a he was such a perfectionist at what he did that like if he set his eyes on something else, then right, who knows? Like he definitely.
It's a fun question.
It is a fun question to discuss. Yeah.
So another fun question is there's been very few of them. Like Michael Jordan did it in that Last Dance documentary I finally finished last week, and it's fantastic. But the two sport athletes, like somebody trying to be like they're really good at one and they're professional and they perform at a very high level. They're not just a guy in the league. They're like an all-star most of the time. And then they try to go over to another sport and emulate that. 99% of them fail, but like the one instance I remember of a guy actually doing it is Deion Sanders. The level of like pure athlete you would have to be to go from like savaging people as a running back in football and like winning championships to like moving over to baseball and being just as good almost. Like,
yeah, dude, it's insane. And Deion Sanders is definitely like probably the most prolific because he did it for a longer period of time, right? Like he did it for like 9 years. He played baseball, and then
both of them at the same time, wasn't he?
Yeah, because I mean, I think they overlap a little bit. Like I think they only overlap the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think they only overlap for like a month or two, kind of thing. But the other one, if you haven't seen it, which I would highly, highly, highly recommend, is the Bo Jackson documentary.
Yeah, he's good too, for sure.
Dude, Bo Jackson was a freakish athlete. Like,
yeah, what's he all about? I'm not really that familiar.
He was a football player and a baseball player, same thing, running back, and basically it was just like they have like mythical stories about this guy growing up in his hometown for how athletic he was, like being able to. There was like a river that ran through town that was like 10 feet wide, and like Bo Jackson could jump over it, and like all these ridiculous like
what,
dude, just these crazy. Like stories of just this super athlete human, And when he was in university, like broke a bunch of records, had crazy like stats and all this stuff, and ended up having his career cut super super short because he was a running back, and he was running. Yeah, he only played 4 years. He played 25, 26, 27, 28 in the NFL, and he might have played a little bit longer in the MLB. But basically, he was a running back. I'm sorry, I'm just checking to see how long he played in baseball. Yeah, he didn't play long. He played till he was like 31 in baseball. And he was running, and a guy kind of like reached up and grabbed him and pulled him back. And he was running so fast that like his like hip, when he got stopped in his tracks, his like hip popped out of place and like snapped. Anyways, he had a really bad injury. And basically the doctors are like, he's the only athlete that could have gotten this injury because he was generating so much force at the time that it happened that like it's not humanly possible to generate that much force and then have it stop. So his body basically broke, but they're like, no one else could even have done that to themselves because that's how like strong and powerful he was.
Wow.
Crazy.
Insane.
There's a lot of athletes too, like in their high school days or in like college days, that they were so good at several different sports, and they actually were like better at one sport in their younger days, but ended up playing professionally in a different sport. And it's like, if some of those guys had the opportunity to play concurrently or like chose a different sport, how would it have turned out? Like, I love those kind of like speculations. And like, also another cool question is like, okay, so you look at the current landscape of sports, like which athlete do you think would have the best chance to be successful if they switch sports?
Ooh. Dude, I think LeBron James could dominate.
Oh, and that's what came to my mind first, because I guess he was like saying that he wanted to try out for like the Cleveland Browns as a wide receiver. Could you imagine him 6'6", like 250 or 60 or whatever he is, and how high he can jump when he dunks the ball, like going up for a pass? Like, who the fuck's going to be able to stop him from
Jump right
grabbing
over people.
Oh yeah, dude, he would be dominant. But again, like he might end up playing 25 years in the NBA, right? Where like if he played 9 years as a wide receiver, that would be like a ridiculously long career.
Yeah, and he'd
Well, and I
blow
think
his knees out probably. Like if he got hit
I think
the wrong way.
the risk of injury, like, are you going to jeopardize pretty much a sure thing in like a sport that's less volatile?
Yeah,
Right.
Well, that's what's crazy about the player that was selected first overall in the NFL last year, Kyler Murray. He was selected 9th overall by the Oakland A's in the MLB in 2018, and then in 2019 he was drafted first overall, and last year he started for the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. But he for sure would have had an MLB career.
Yeah, I was thinking that like that kind of speaks to why I remember my dad mentioning how a lot of athletes move to golf because you can play golf forever. Like there's no age limit to golf. You can play whenever you want, and it's like really calm. It's pretty easy. You're out in nature, taking your time, having a couple of drinks maybe. Yeah,
I'm going to come visit you guys in BC, and we should go do a round of golf. I love golfing, man. I suck at it, but it's great.
Dude, it's awesome. It's fun. It's the only sport that's actually like you can have a good time and be having the worst time at the same time because you suck at it. But that's the thing about golf, dude. Golf's like expensive to get into to get started, and then it's also it's an individual sport, right? So it's even more mentally demanding because you got no team to blame. It's all on your own shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's what best ball is all about.
Yeah, there's something about that, like being like for me, I played a little bit last summer with a buddy of mine up in Toronto, and we used to go just at like an executive course. It was mostly, for people that don't know, it's just mostly 3-par, maybe a couple 4-par holes. And yeah, dude, that's when like I really started to fall in love with the game. Like, and again, I'm not very good by any stretch of the means, but like, every once in a while you make that really nice shot, or you get close to par, or maybe you might even hit par. And that feeling, it's sometimes overwhelming, especially if you got a little tiny buzz on. Like, you feel amazing, dude. It's so fun.
Par 3 courses or chip and putts are the way to go for sure. Because then you actually feel like you're having fun, and you're not on par 5, 400 yards from the pin, being like, okay, this could take me 12 shots, and I might not even get close.
Yeah, yeah.
That's no fun. Thing.
No, and I always like to keep myself accountable too. Like I for some reason, I was never like in the sense that I would never want to take off strikes or strokes. I mean, if I shot 14 on a par 3, I'm writing that down so then I can look at it and be like, okay, dude, you gotta work on this, okay? But not like really get it, because that's another thing too about golf. It's like I've gone with a few of my friends back home, and some people can't handle it. Some people just lose their minds and get so mad, and then they're frustrated, and that's part of the game, I think, too. Is what's so good maybe for your own psyche is that like to control that frustration, even if you do suck ass, just control it, because otherwise it makes golf really stressful, and it can be, but it also can be really kind of meditative, like it can be kind of zen. There's something zen about golf that I really like.
That's very true. It is very relaxing when it's fun. It's also very frustrating when it's not going your way, but that's the best part about it, is you just got to realize, like, hey, you're not good enough to get worked up about it. You're going to have some bad shots, so just go out there and have fun.
But dude, like, you have until you're an old man to get good, like that's what's so cool about it. If you want to play in PGA Tour when you're in your 80s, you still could, a lot of time.
In theory, yeah. In theory, you could.
Theoretically speaking.
In theory. In practicality,
nah. I got a question for you boys. So there's, in the wide world of sports, there's a lot of sports out there, and like it's really interesting to see like what region of the world you're in, what sports are popular, and like might not be what we're used to. Because I think it goes soccer or football is the number one watched sport and played sport in the world, and then number 2 I think is cricket. And I know nothing about cricket. I don't even know why they line up the way they do or how the hell it's played. But is there any sport that you haven't played yet that you would be interested to try?
Ooh,
cricket.
Yeah, cricket.
Yeah,
I'd play cricket. There's actually a 24/7 I call it 24/7 because that's what the NHL was called, where it's like a sports behind the scenes kind of thing, There's one of them on Netflix for cricket, a cricket team, and it's actually really cool to watch and figure out. And it's pretty savage, dude. Like, they like catch the ball with their bare hands. There's a bunch of rules, and like, yeah, I don't even know how to get into it, but it looks like it's a lot of fun.
The 2 things that always struck me about cricket is like they're lined up even behind the batter. To catch the outfield quote unquote balls. And then the other one is the way that they pitch the ball by like running 100 miles an hour at the plate and then like throwing it at the ground so that it bounces up to the batter. Like, this shit's crazy.
Yeah, they call it bowling, and it's like insane because the ball is like apparently super hard too. It's like I think it's like a pool ball kind of thing.
That would hurt.
Yeah, it's madness, dude. But again, it's huge, and that it's so like I never really got big into like soccer either until the past few years, and I've kind of started following it. But like that takes sports to a whole nother level. When you think of North American sports versus like the way that soccer's treated in different countries,
they're murderous.
Oh, dude, it's a religion, man.
Like, kill you out there.
It's a legit religion.
It's like some of these like small town Russian cities that got like 1,500 people have like the most ravenous fan base, and if you wear the opposite team's jersey in their stadium, you'll get seriously hurt.
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, I mean, it's Russia. Russia's a write-off, man. Like they just doing.
Not even just Russia. There's like even England teams, and like there's a lot of places in like Europe or in Asia where they take it super serious.
Oh yeah, and like in England, the visiting team, like they enter in the arena or into the stadium in like a different entrance than what the home team enters in, and you sit in different sections. Like, yeah, it's crazy, dude. But it's also It's really cool because it's just such a deep history, right, of like all the teams and the way it works, and their academy system, and how like you can start playing with a team when you're 12 years old and play with them until you're 40. Like it's a very cool system of how soccer works and how it grooms their players, like their assets, and not as much contracts, but more like you belong to a certain team, and that's a team that raises you and brings you into the major leagues, and then you can get bought, and it's wild, man. Like Cristiano Ronaldo got transferred for like $100 million, I think. And that was just like his transfer fee to get purchased by another team. Then they also had to sign him to a contract. And I think he makes like, I know, yeah, Leo Messi makes $92 million a year in salary. Think about that.
Craziest for salaries.
I know that Ronaldo does a lot of he spends a lot of his money on charities and stuff, because he's been on record saying like it's too much money, like I don't even, like I have to give some of it away, which I think is really respectable, and it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about in a previous podcast. It's like, what do you do when you have that much money? You know, are you going to be a person, or are you going to be not so much of a good person? I have another a cool sport.
Keep it and take over the world.
You keep it, yeah. You ready, Stimpy? Tonight we take over the world. I have kite surfing. I think that would be cool.
That would be something.
That'd be sweet, dude. Like, there's also windsurfing, which is kind of a variation, or it's essentially a variation of each other. Or like, so it's basically like having a sail surf. Like it's like a sail on a surfboard, which would be super cool. And like, if it's a windy day, oh, dude, or paragliding, man, that'd be so cool. Just jump on the top of a mountain and just like fly all the way down. Dude, I've got some goals now that I just created for myself.
Dude, that shit is terrifying. Jumping off of a mountain and just hoping yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that for me, but I like it for you.
You gotta plan it out, yeah. I'm gonna try it. Skydiving is another one on the list too. Like, I've never been skydiving, and I don't know how much of a sport that is, but I think it'd be something that I gotta try once. Also, then being an astronaut and maybe seeing the moon, maybe there too. You know, I want to see space. I want to see Earth from space.
Just try out being an astronaut. So it's only the hardest job in the world to get, but I'll just try it out and see if it suits my liking. Dude, that's the funniest part about that. When you hear what astronauts are like, oh, Sir Astronaut McRonald landed on the moon. He's a aerospace engineer, a real engineer, a doctor, an electrician, a musician. He plays the piano. And you're like, dude, what? How does this guy have so much time? They all have like 8 degrees. They're like in insane physical shape. It makes no sense.
It's wild.
I have a list of cool sports you've probably never heard of. You should listen to some of these. So there's one called chess boxing. Apparently these guys play chess, but they're also like wearing boxing gloves, but they're like MMA gloves. And you win by either winning the chess match or like knocking the guy out. Interesting concept. There's one called swamp soccer. Players abide by the exact same rules as normal soccer, except without the stability of a grassy field to play on. They play in a giant pool of mud. There's a wife carrying. Have you ever seen that shit?
Wife carrying? That's a real sport, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they run over obstacle courses, but they have their wives like strapped to their back. So most of the time they like wrap their legs around the guy's neck and like hang off his back. I've seen videos.
You know what these remind me of is, do you remember, I don't know if it's still playing or if it's still going on, but like basketball with those trampolines? What was that?
Dude, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Street ball. Isn't that what it's called?
Was it street ball?
Spike ball.
Spike. No, it was, man.
I remember seeing that. Yeah, I remember seeing that. That'd be so cool. Because
they used to play it. They used to play it on Spike.
Slam ball.
Slam ball, dude.
Slam ball, yeah.
Slam ball, dude. Slam ball. I can't believe they got rid of slam ball.
Spike TV.
Yeah, Spike TV used to have it. That's where, and like Dude, what? Who canceled that? Why is that not still a thing?
Yeah, right.
Dude,
There,
didn't I don't know. Have you guys ever watched One Tree Hill? No,
Back in the day,
no,
yeah, with Jess, I used to watch it.
dude. One Tree Hill is like a whatever teen soap opera show thing, and one of the characters on that show played slam ball
He
in the
did. I
show.
remember that. Yeah, because I remember watching the first like 3 seasons years and years and years ago, like in elementary school. I remember that, dude. Now that you say that,
Yeah, his character played slam ball. It's so funny, dude.
have you guys ever seen? It's like volleyball, but you can only use your feet.
Yeah, dude, that's big like over in like Southeast Asia, hey?
Yeah,
That
like some of these
shit's
guys are doing
crazy.
like fucking bicycle kicks and shit. Like it's no problem.
Um, Speaking of crazy shows, though, there's a show on Netflix called Home Game, and it basically is that. It's just like all these crazy sports from around the world. And if you don't watch the whole series, just watch the first episode, dude. It's the most insane thing you'll ever watch in your whole life.
Do you know what the
Um,
sport is?
what's that?
Do you know what they're playing?
Yeah, so I'll explain it quickly, but I'll try and as I'm explaining it, I'll try and figure out the name of it so people could just Google it. Um, it's played in Florence, and it's only played in Florence. The game is so violent that they only play 2 games a year. So basically, it's like a mix between like rugby and soccer, sort of. It's 11 on 11, and they have like a ball, and they play in like a square court, and you're trying to score on nets on either end of the court by throwing the ball in. But it's full out fist fighting. So these guys are like fist fighting each other. It's called Calicio Storico.
I think
Um,
I've seen videos of that. Dude,
dude,
isn't
and the caption is Rugby meets mixed martial arts in the brutally violent Calicio Storico, a traditional sport of Florence, Italy that dates back nearly 500 years. And it is savage, dude.
yeah, imagine going over there and just like casually being like, "Yeah, I'll suit up."
So that's the thing, man. You have to be born in Florence to play the game. The city of Florence is split into 4 sections, and they're labeled red, green, white, and blue. And whatever section of Florence you're born in, that's what team you have to play for your whole life if you want to play. And they only have one tournament a year, and if you win the championships, you only play 2 games because it's so violent and so many people get hurt doing it. They can only do it twice a year.
wow.
It is wild. That's the most insane sport ever. I don't think anybody wants to play that sport. They just do it for honor
Oh,
and pride.
check this out. Check this one out. It's called Jeppen. It's from the Netherlands, and it's called far leaping, and it takes pole vaulting to an entirely new level. So I'm reading this off of a blog today. It's a fascinating Dutch sport. Competitors sprint along a dock-like platform and launch themselves onto a giant pole in the middle of a canal. And then they shimmy to the top and then use that weight to carry themselves across to the other side. And the world record's like 70 feet. So, like, do you imagine just like jumping off of a fucking into a canal and like hopefully landing on a giant pole that you can use to like what is going on in the Netherlands?
Yeah, dude. Sports are nuts.
Well, we were talking about MMA, and I don't know if you guys have seen the videos. I think it was on like Facebook that I first noticed these. One variation of it is they have, I think it's 5-on-5 MMA, so they all get in the
Oh,
octagon, and it's like team based. So they'll start at 5 versus 5, and say one guy gets knocked out cold. Then all 5 guys move to the 4 guys left, and then say they knock another guy out. It's 5-on-3, and there's just like 3 guys beating up one guy and just like kicking him in the head. And shit. It's
Jesus
wild.
Christ,
dude, it's
brawl.
savagery. I remember
There was
watching that before. That should not be legal.
no, it shouldn't. And there was one video I saw where it was like 4 guys left on the one team and only one guy on the other, and they're just pummeling the shit out of him. But he's like warrior mentality, just like swinging for the fences, trying to like take anybody out with him. And wow, it's insane to say the least.
Yeah.
Yo,
There's another.
there's a world toe wrestling championship held in England. The last one was won by a Canadian. Toe wrestling.
Dude,
That's it for
5-on-5 MMA is the nutsest shit ever.
Have you seen the? There's another one called medieval MMA, and they're like full on geared up in like knights outfits with swords and shit, and just pummeling each other upside the head with fucking
I'd go
swords.
see that for sure. That sounds cool.
It's like what medieval times should be.
I'd
Yeah.
go see that for sure.
I got a few more winners here on the sports you might never have heard about list. So there's one called snow kiting. You use a parachute-like kite and wind power to go both up and down the hill. So it gives the rider more options than just going downhill and trying to stay on their feet, which allows them to literally soar up or down a slope while doing 360s and other stunts.
Dude. Nuts, man. People just...
That would be sweet, seeing the guy like flying up the hill, fucking doing like crazy shit.
Yeah, England's got some crazy ones too, like shin kicking. Like you just kick your enemy in the shin for as hard as you can, and it dates back to the 17th century.
Shit, dude. Just because things are old doesn't mean we should still be doing them.
Have you seen slap fighting?
Dude, I am watching this 5-on-5 right now, and this is just
It's
utterly horrible. It's just like one guy will pin a guy, and then another guy will just come over and kick him in the head. It's like,
yeah.
oh my
it's
god,
very like, oh man, did you really need to do that?
yeah. Like who is liking this? Oh, dude,
I think it's big in like
definitely
like
big in Russia, dude. It's 100% big in Russia.
Oh, this looks crazy. Holy, it's like
Dude, right?
It's just like a street brawl with like fucking gangs.
Yeah, this is just a gang fight. Exactly. This is just a formalized official gang fight.
Look at it. They're like pointing to each other, being like, "I'm going for that one."
Yeah, that's the guy right there.
Absolute.
You can tell when a guy on the losing team starts to see his buddies go down, the fear in him probably just like skyrockets.
Dude, and all the guys watching are just, none of them look like they're wearing shirts. They're just sleeveless, gold chains, gold teeth, madness. Yeah.
Have you guys seen this slap boxing thing that's like big in Russia?
Oh, that's savage.
There's
too,
like
man.
there's this guy who's like the champ. He actually got knocked out recently by some other big dude. But he's got a big beard and he's like this like 300-pound fat guy. And there's like some skinny like 160-pound guys that enter this. And just seeing him like line him up a couple times and then just haul off and crank somebody and knock them out cold. Like you put your face out, no protection, and just lean out while a buddy lines you up and cranks you. It's vicious. I was showing some people at work that they didn't believe me that it was a thing, and we watched a couple of videos and there was like 15 people around my desk going like, "Oh my lord, like what the fuck is this?"
Dude. Yeah, and anything like this is just people with too much anger and time on their hands. This isn't a sport. This is just people who should probably go see some therapists and talk it out.
So on the lighter side of sports you might never have heard about, there's a thing called the Tour de France. So as one can probably tell by the name itself, it's like bicycles or tricycles, a hell of a lot of safety equipment, and wine. So the object is for a team to drink the boxes of wine as fast as possible, then to race on bikes around a predetermined course.
That sounds jokes.
I could
be the Lance Armstrong of that.
Yeah, I could get behind that for sure. For sure. Count me in.
Have you guys seen like pro tag?
Yeah, dude, that's nuts too. Professional tag. That and like it's like parkour essentially.
No, I haven't seen that.
There's like obstacle courses. It's like a square arena with like friggin' like poles. It looks like a jungle gym on steroids, and they start off at opposite ends, and one guy's it, and the other guy's got to catch them, and they're just flying through like parkour style. Fucking.
That sounds really fun.
I would love to try that.
Yeah, straight up.
There's another one that's popular in India called kabaddi. Essentially, there's a one person called a raider against 7 people on the opposing side who try to prevent them from getting back to their own side. So basically, it's like you get dragged out kicking and screaming. Who comes up with this shit?
Right? People with too much time on their hands, man. People with too much time.
People love
Anyway,
competition, man.
It's true.
fuck. I think we need to do another episode of sports at some point down the road. But let's get into our lightning round here.
Let's go. Let's do it.
It's time for lightning round. It's time for lightning round.
Woo! Okay, so it's me asking the questions. Obviously, they're going to be sports related, and I did some thorough pre-research to line them up, and I think I got some good ones for you. I was telling Joe earlier that Jackson's probably going to be a lot better set up to win this one, but depending on how bad you're whooping his ass, I might tailor a few to him.
Big expectations.
Yeah,
Big
we'll
expectations.
see if you live up to the hype here.
All right.
Okay, and I think because they're quick fire ones and I already got them lined up, I might do more than 11. I'm thinking like 15 or something. But okay, so first one. What do the initials BMX represent in cross-country bike racing?
Ooh. Bicycle man crossover.
Incorrect.
Bicycle. Much extreme.
I'll give you a hint. So the B stands for bicycle. The X is just X. So what's the M stand for?
Machine.
No. Jody, you got a final guess?
Oh, I think I might know, but
Well, you can.
I'm still trying to think. Bicycle.
It's a word you've definitely heard of before.
Mountain. I don't know.
No. I'll give you one more guess if you got it.
is it maneuver?
No.
Yeah, wouldn't make sense anyways.
Think of like dirt bikes. What's another name for the sport of dirt biking?
Oh, I know it now. Joe can't get it.
I can't get. I don't know.
Motocross.
Close. I'm gonna give neither person a point. It's bicycle moto X.
Moto. That's like a half point. I'd give a half point.
Nah, 0 points awarded.
Yeah. In which city is San Siro Stadium located in Italy?
Ooh, San Siro's.
Cicero?
Nope.
Barcelona?
Nope.
Florence?
Nope.
Milan?
It is Milan.
Yeah. Who plays there? Do you know?
No effing idea.
Yeah, shit.
Which country won the first ever football World Cup?
What? Soccer? You mean?
Yeah.
Sorry. Brazil.
Nope.
Spain?
Nope.
England.
Nope.
Portugal.
Nope.
Are we like close, like hot or cold, or?
Whoever guessed Brazil is in the right continent. It's not a country you'd think of. I knew this because I heard it and never forgot it, but it's
South
not one
Africa?
No, Brazil is in South America. It's in South America.
Peru.
No.
Okay.
I'll give you guys one more guess.
South America. Dude, I have no idea.
I can't blame you. Once you hear the answer, you'll be like, wow.
Can you give us like a letter, like a first letter or something?
It ends in Y. I'll give you both one more guess.
Y. I have no idea. I can't.
I I'm asking good questions if it's not.
Yeah, it's true. But I have no idea. We have to move
Okay.
on.
Joe, you out?
Yeah, I'm out.
It's Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Wow. There you go, soccer fans. There's a new fact for you.
Oh, they probably knew that one.
true.
Which country has played in each and every World Cup?
Uruguay.
No.
United States.
Joe? No. Jackson?
Yeah.
England.
Nope. Joe?
Spain.
Nope. Jackson, last guess.
Oh man. France.
Nope. Joe?
Portugal.
Nope. It's Brazil.
Oh,
Oh, dude, we suck at trivia.
Popular one. Okay, we're gonna move away from the soccer ones here for a minute.
they're tough.
So I know you guys probably aren't big tennis fans, but because it's a different sport, I'm gonna ask you one of these. Which country is Novak Djokovic from?
Russia.
Croatia.
Nope.
Ukraine.
Nope. I love how you guys are just guessing like Eastern European /
I thought he was from Croatia though. Novak Djokovic.
It's a tough one.
Is he Czech?
No.
Netherlands.
No. Well, I think the way I'm going to do it is because our answered versus asked is so low. It'll just be like first to 7 right or something.
Yeah, even 3 right.
They'll get easier.
Yeah, I got no idea that Croatia was my big like. Aha.
You're close. You're very close with that one.
Greece?
No.
No, I'm out.
Joe, anything?
Yugoslavia.
Oh, that's a pretty good guess. No, it's Serbia.
Ooh, Serbian.
He's a Serbian. The mule kick and stale fish are terms in which sport? We'll do first to 5, actually.
MMA?
Nope.
The
The
mule
mule
kick.
The stale fish.
Cricket.
Joe? Nope. We've all performed a stale fish in a video game. I'll give you that hint.
Oh.
We've all performed a stale fish in a video game.
It sounds like a game over or something.
Did I feel like I've heard the mule kick before?
You've definitely heard of stale fish, I'm telling you. Okay, so this is not the sport, but in Tony Hawk Pro Skater, you can perform a stale fish.
So
Okay.
is it skateboarding?
It's not skateboarding, but what is kind of like skateboarding?
Oh, wakeboarding.
No.
Surfing.
Nope.
What?
You're moving in the right direction, though.
Kite surfing.
Come on, guys. More generic.
Snowboarding.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that seems so clear and obvious now.
Yes. Yes.
So Mike Tyson used to be the most dominant force in boxing. Name the boxer who stunned him by knocking him out.
Oh, George Mayweather.
No.
Sonny Liston.
Nope. He is not known to anybody unless you know that he knocked him out.
I know.
Damn, dude.
You'll never forget it after I tell you who it is.
Um,
His last name is Douglas.
Oh, Buster Douglas.
There you go.
Yeah. Buster. That's an unbelievable sports name.
Yeah. I'm going to give this next one to Joe first. Which country hosted the 2008 Olympics?
Beijing.
Country.
Oh, China.
Yeah.
Oh, sniper.
What is the first team to win 3 Super Bowls in the NFL?
Ooh. The Dallas Cowboys?
Incorrect. Nice guess, though. Joe? Joe's probably like, I can only name like 3 teams.
Yeah, fucking New England Patriots.
Nope. They're a very popular team, though, so I'll let you guys keep guessing.
I'm trying to think who's like.
Obviously, they're old.
Yes.
And obviously, they're quite prolific. And it's not the Cowboys, and it's not the Patriots.
It's the Eagles.
Nope.
Giants? No.
Nope.
Oh,
Think defense.
Oh, the Bears.
Nope, that's a good guess, though.
Indians.
that's baseball.
That's not
Shit.
the same sport. But oh man, 3 Super Bowls.
They have stars on their helmets.
Stars.
No, there's no team called the Stars.
Dallas Stars. It's hockey.
Dude, I'm literally just brain farting over NFL teams right now.
The city's baseball name is the Pirates.
Oh, the Steelers.
There you go.
Oh, dude, whoever likes sports and is listening to this is gonna fucking hate us, dude.
You guys butchered it.
These morons.
It's all good. They're not easy.
The Steelers. Anyways.
Okay, so Joe's down 4-1. Jackson only needs 1 to win, so I'm gonna throw this one to Joe. What is 3 back-to-back strikes known as in bowling?
Give me a second. A full house.
Give me that turkey sandwich.
Yeah, there you go.
I would have never got the turkey sandwich.
No, it's just called a turkey.
Okay, so Jackson is our winner.
Yes.
So epic rant for you today, sir.
Yes.
Let's move it along from this catastrophic.
Yeah.
That was good. Here we go.
What's weird in the world today? What's weird in the world today?
All right, gents. Joe, I'm going to throw it to you first. What is weird in the world today, sir?
What is weird in the world today? Let's see here. I'm just going to say that there's a lot of things going weird in the world today. There's a lot of, and I don't want to say anything specific, but what's weird in the world today is I'm going to have to say people's ideologies and political views and how we're just so divided and how, there's so many people believe in one thing and so many people on the opposite end of the spectrum. And what's weird is that, I the more and more stuff that comes in the news about, political Trump showing up and, some people praising him for what he's been doing and other people's being like, look how much of an idiot he is. And what's weird is that you have, a country that, might have a civil war, and that's like kind of scary right now. And it's just weird to see that, things that we've been reading in history and wild events that are so politically driven, so partisan, What's weird is that we're like right in the middle of it, and that's what I think's weird in the world today.
All
Fair
right.
enough.
All right. Well, my what's weird in the world is a lot more precise, I guess I'll say. This actually happened a week ago, but a man's bladder explodes after holding in pee for 24 hours after beer binge. The dude's bladder exploded after he was just smashing brewskis with the boys. In an incident that refers to sleeping off a Chinese man's bladder burst when he unknowingly held in pee for 18 hours after binging on booze. That was always something I kind of wondered that if it could happen, because I didn't I didn't actually realize how big or small different people's bladders are until I was in a relationship and I drove across the country and my partner had to stop to pee about every 25 minutes. And I didn't think that that was actually a thing until I went for multiple road trips and realized that yes, people's bladders are different sizes and yes, they can explode. So no, you cannot pass and just tell them to hold it, because you do have to stop because your bladder could explode after 18 hours of binge drinking. So that's pretty weird to me. If you ask me, that don't hold it. Just let it go. It's all gonna be okay. Pee your pants a little. It's fine.
Somehow that
That's
like relates to what I said in a weird way too. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, just pee your pants a little. It's all good.
Okay, so what's weird in the world today for me is just some catchy headlines in the news that were weird. Some of them older than others, but I just found some of them really funny. So I guess like these are supposed to be like to taken seriously, but they can't possibly be because of how outlandish they are. So I told you the one where Gordon Ramsay's sex dwarf was eaten by a badger, but other interesting highlights. In Staten Island, apparently in the Staten Island Advance newspaper, the headline was Staten Island teen with mayonnaise jar full of marijuana finds he cannot outrun a horse.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
do
you
that.
probably. In the Central Somerset Gazette in England, a woman dressed as vagina stops street fight between penis and man in Glastonbury.
What the fuck?
Um,
Oh my god, we're in La La
this
Land, boys.
Yeah, it's in Indonesia. There was a headline: Cow seduces Indonesian man. An 18-year-old man on Indonesia's resort island of Bali claimed he was seduced by a cow after being caught having sex with the animal.
He just like
She
looked
was
at it and went moo.
gave him a wink, farted in the direction. The methane, I'm telling you. He was caught by one of the residents standing naked while holding the back of the cow.
Jesus.
There was a newscaster in. It doesn't really say where he's from, but apparently he thought he was eating grape nuts on live television, and instead, this weatherman ate cat vomit. And
All right. Wow.
apparently, in the Sun, which could be anywhere, the Sun warned us about Nazi raccoons invading from Europe, and they're on the warpath. Hordes of Nazi raccoons are out to conquer Europe. They are just across the channel from Britain after marching through France, Belgium, Holland, and Denmark in a furry blitzkrieg.
This is so
Where do people where do they find this shit?
oh man.
Madness.
I'll give you one more eye catcher. Apparently, in the newspaper, a man has claimed that the ghost of Michael Jackson tried to sexually assault his monkey. Ape owner furious at Spectre's sex outrage.
Like, these
Oh,
people
God.
should be locked away. You shouldn't be allowed to be put in the news. You're crazy. You're crazy if you think that that's happening.
Oh, this one's great too. Report says dolphins died of heroin overdose after rave at the zoo.
Jesus.
Jeez,
Oh man, I'm tearing up. I'm crying here. So
no
good.
no comment.
Pink-clad pooch stolen from gay bar by man with Britney Spears tattoo.
All right, clickbait is taking over our atmosphere world, and it's too much. It's
All
too
right.
much.
On that note, let's give him his time in the sun.
Thank you. I need this.
Time for your favorite segment, Epic Rants.
Hit it.
All right. Well, in this rendition of Epic Rant Time, I just want to talk a little bit about the kind of, not as much the state of the world, because we've gone over it the past few episodes, but kind of the perspective of the world and people understanding that no matter how bad today's times are, no matter how much we want change, and we should continue to push change and evolution and growth of our society and civilization, it's also the best time to ever be alive. So I found this on the very trusty, informative, great website known as Facebook that's been taken over by all of our parents and changed to basically just clickbait and fake news. But this is something that I find is actually pretty cool. So it's 2020. Imagine you were born in 1900. 120 years ago. When you're 14, World War I begins and ends when you're 18, with 22 million people dying. Soon after, a global pandemic, the Spanish flu, appears, killing another 50 million people. And you're alive, and you're 20 years old. When you're 29, you survive the global economic crisis that started with the collapse of the New York Stock Exchange, causing inflation, unemployment, and famine. When you're 33 years old, the Nazis come to power. When you're 39, World War II begins and ends when you're 45 years old, with 60 million dead. The Holocaust killing 6 million Jewish people and other minorities. When you're 52, the Korean War begins. When you're 64, the Vietnam War begins and ends when you're 75. A child born in 1985 thinks his grandparents have no idea how difficult life is, but they have survived several wars and catastrophes. Basically, the world's been in chaos for years. The world will continue to be in chaos for years. The end is coming as it's always been coming. The beginning is beginning as life continues to grow. We need to stop analyzing things like right now and today is going to be the end of time. The information is just more accessible to us. You can get on your computer and Google anything you want into the search bar, and that information is readily available to you. Less than 50 years ago, you had to walk down to a library, hopefully find a book that had a question that you hopefully wanted answered, and you had to hopefully believe that the person who wrote that book actually put the work in to find the answers and understand that that was the truth. We live in a time where information is there. It's easy to grab. It's easy to understand. It's easy to digest. When you're looking through the internet and you're getting down, or you're listening to the news and you're getting down, or you're outside in the public and you're seeing things that make you feel like times are the worst and things are bad and this is happening and pollution and global warming and all this stuff, it is all bad. It is not great. But don't forget that we've been going through this for years, hundreds and thousands of years. We've been moving forward on this huge dirt spaceship, hurtling through space, and no one knows what's going on, and no one knows where it's going. And you know what? Today we just found out that Kanye West is running for president. So do the smart thing. Don't vote for Kanye. Make smart decisions. Try and be a good person, and just relax a little bit, because the world will always be in chaos.
I think that is like the epitome of what Epic Rant should be. And I can't believe on What's Weird, we all didn't take the bait on the Kanye West thing.
I know. That's crazy.
Man,
That's
I know,
crazy.
Kanye.
Yo,
I got a question
Go ahead.
to round out this podcast. If you had to choose one, Trump or Kanye?
Kanye, for the entertainment factor purely.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to second that for sure.
Yeah, Gayfish 2020.
Man.
South Park. Yeah, that was great. Also, I just wanted to say real quick that wow, that was an excellent rant, especially because that that was completely unplanned with what I was how we had no idea what we were gonna say, and it was pretty amazing how you basically responded to our what's weirds, which was really cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty sweet.
Well, and we must subscribe to the same whatever thing on the news feed, because I saw that 2 days ago and I thought it was really cool to read, and I'm glad that you popped it in here.
Yeah, it's a cool way of looking at things for sure.
All right, boys. Well, it's been another fantastic episode. We actually ran super long with this one, but I found we had a lot to chew on, and by the end of it, there's probably a whole other episode we could do on the topic of sports. But I can't wait till the next episode. Looking forward to it. And if you guys have any parting words of wisdom, you can feel free to say so now.
Love it. Well, another fun one, guys. And like you said, Jake, I'm excited for the next one. And Jack's exceptional rant.
Thanks, guys. If you're still listening, and we enjoy it, we appreciate it, and we look forward to the next one. On and on.
Yep. So follow us at seewhatsticks.com, and we'll have some new podcast episodes up there very shortly. So signing off. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.